Hi there, Jerrel here. I'm the developer of Silver Falls, and I wanted to talk a bit about the writing process that went into writing the characters and the story for Three Down Stars. So, firstly, I just wanted to thank everyone for everyone who's been supporting the game. You've been playing the game, and you've been sharing the game online and telling other gamers about it. I'm super grateful. Thank you guys so much. That really means a lot to me. Um, and I've had people sort of message me and comment and sort of ask about the story and the game and things related to sort of the narrative. So when I wrote Three Down Stars, I actually wrote it with a couple of stories in mind in terms of connectivity. And the primary games that I had in mind, and I wrote other stories for other games simultaneously, would be Deadly Shadows, Undertakers, and Road Past Guilt, which will be the upcoming RPG. Later down the line, later in development, as I was writing the story for Three Down Stars, I took into account Diamond Island, and there are two upcoming mobile games which will be free. And they're just small, focused experiences, but these two free games will be Silver Falls, A Night Drive Reaching Out into Darkness, which will be exclusive to Android, and Silver Falls in Outer Space, which will be exclusive to iOS. So those games, Android will star Romanic Rodriguez as the playable character, and in Outer Space will feature Tira Dollarbuck, who appears in the background of Three Down Stars. She'll be the playable character in outer space. My air conditioner's just kind of going all sorts of crazy here. I'll just turn that off for now. So those there's a couple of other games that obviously in the future will connect to Three Down Stars, but those games primarily are the ones that I wrote. All of those stories, I wrote them at the same time, and I made sure all of those stories were complete as I was writing Three Down Stars. So with Three Down Stars, I wanted to write a kind of story that wasn't common and wasn't widely seen in video games. It's unfortunate that the game industry tends to pick a popular game, and then it sort of becomes an echo chamber of repeating the same thing again and again. And I'm not bashing any game series. I'm not bashing any developers or anything like that. But for me, as a writer and a game designer, I want to create something that's new and interesting so that when people do play it, they see a point in playing this game and they experience something new when it comes to the game itself. So I wanted to write a story that wasn't the stereotypical, oh, this happens, so now we have these monsters, and now we have to kill these monsters. I wanted a story that wasn't as simple as something you could sum up in one sentence and say, look, here's this thing, you better go and fight it now with your guns. And so with Three Down Stars, I wanted to focus the story on characters whose lives were affected by a particular event. And of course, I'm trying to pick my words carefully. I don't want to spoil anything. And I wanted the source of horror in Three Down Stars to not come from something that the player could directly kill. I grew up as a huge fan of Resident Evil and Silent Hill, but to me, the fact that you could fight the source of horror and you could kill the source of horror made that horror less scary. When horror becomes tangible, it's less scary. And when, as the game developer, if you give the player a way to deal with that horror, the horror becomes less effective. And horror that's too tangible is not scary. So I didn't want to focus on oh, look how grotesque and scary this monster is. It's 5 legs that are ambling towards you, you know. And I'm not bashing Silent Hill, because I absolutely love Silent Hill. That's a big part of my gaming identity, and I've had so much fun playing Silent Hill over the years. but the fact that you the thing that was scary about Silent Hill was the monsters, and you could kill those monsters pretty easily. Especially in Silent Hill 2, I mean, you get yourself the wooden plank, and you become a whirling dervish of death. And, anything that comes towards you, you're just, come at me, I've got this wooden plank here. And you can stun lock enemies. So the enemies that are in Silver Falls are not intended to be the source of the horror, and I wanted the horror to come from the writing and the concept that your life has changed in a way that you cannot fully grasp. You don't really understand the full magnitude about what has changed about your life. And because one thing has changed in your life, potentially everything could be different, and you don't understand why that's happened, and you have no control over that. And that is a horror that builds up until the end of the game, and then there's people, players that have gotten through to the end of the game, and they'll send me comments and tell me they enjoyed the game, especially as it ramped up towards the end. And I'm so grateful that you guys are enjoying the game, and I'm grateful that you're taking the time to play the game, and then you're taking the time to message me and let me know what you think of it. So thank you so much for that. And I really wanted the game to feel rewarding, and that by the time you get to the end of the game, you feel like you have a little bit more control over your life, and you have a little bit of control over the horror that is ruining these characters' lives, but not complete and total control, but you have some. And the source of horror in Silver Falls 3 Down Stars doesn't come from something that you can hit with a wooden plank and beat it into submission and say, haha, I did it, the horror is gone. The horror in 3 Down Stars is ever present in a story standpoint, because you can't fight the story and you can't fight the core concept of the game. And I don't fully know or understand how well that comes through, because in my mind I fully grasp it. I built the thing, but I will never ever be able to view the game the way that other people view it and other people play it and experience it and enjoy it. And my only hope is that people really enjoy it and they get something out of the story, and it's a lot of fun for them to go through. But for me, I really have no idea. So actually, I'm kind of relying on people to tell me and let me know what they think. So the characters of, I've had some people ask, the characters of 3 Down Stars are not based on real people. And the events that happen to those characters, they're not exactly based one-to-one on things that have happened to me or other people in my life, but they are inspired by some difficult events that I've gone through in my life. But I didn't want to, shoehorn stuff into the game and force it in there just to be a sob fest and say, look how sad that this is. Look at this person's life is so sad. I absolutely didn't want it to do that. I wanted to create a story that was relatable in some way for people to look at it and go, oh man, I've gone through the same sort of thing, And it was, the story of 3 Down Stars is meant to be something that people could relate to, and that you could watch these characters and see how they struggle and how they deal with it and get through these issues. So it is, the events are not one-to-one inspired by things that have happened to me or other people, but the feelings that come from those events are things that I've experienced in my life, and sort of I wanted to write these characters dealing with those feelings, and hopefully people can sympathize with that, and they can see value in the story and the way these characters deal with their struggles. So the story of 3 Down Stars, I'm trying to be really careful to not get too much into it and spoil things. So I hope that if people enjoyed 3 Down Stars, every story that's coming up will not share the same formula. Each story will be quite different. So for Deadly Shadows, you have a character who, I'll have to check my notes again. He's either 17 or 18. He's left home, and he's joined a logging crew. This, again, Deadly Shadows is set in the 80s. So he heads up with this logging crew, and he is working with guys that are a bit older than him, and they're veterans. They're more experienced. They're quite gruff, so they can be a little bit standoffish towards this kid. But luckily, there's another new recruit on the logging team. Those two end up bonding, and they both live in Silver Falls, and they had never met before, but they become friends over the course of the game. And you see, sort of as you know, things start to get serious, and members of the logging crew start going missing. And I, of course, don't want to spoil things in the story, but that's a story it's much less like Silver Falls, and it's much more in the moment, and characters dealing with an ever-present threat. With Undertakers, the story is much simpler. Again, you're dealing with a present threat because the format and media and style of Undertakers, it's meant to represent a game as if it was made in the 70s. So it obviously wouldn't have the same complexity of character and themes as Three Down Stars had. And with Road Past Guilt RPG, that's where I really get to bring some meat to the story. RPGs are my favorite genre, and the reason being is that you just get to jump into these characters' lives, and you get to see what they're all about, and you get to see what drives them, and you get to learn all about them and their backstory, and you know, you get to watch them fight battles, not just, you know, literally, but proverbially, you know. And with RPG, you're going to create a character that's your stand-in, a sort of an avatar character. It's as if you get to go to the town Silver Falls, and you get to recruit different characters that you would have met through the other games in the Silver Falls series. And the stories in RPG are going to have the same kind of complexity and depth that Three Down Stars had. So if you enjoyed Three Down Stars, I really hope that you'll enjoy RPG, because there's a heck of a lot more to it. I've spent literally thousands of hours writing these characters and writing these stories over the past 3 years, and RPG really gives me the chance to flesh these characters out and let players explore and spend time with these characters. And there is a core party in terms of the story of Three Down Stars. So there are characters that are absolutely necessary to the plot, and I'm really against filler and just sort of padding things out. So for characters like Holt, Annalise, and Moss, they had their story. Players get to spend time with them. In RPG, they are not part of the core story, because I don't want to just jam them in there. I think from a writing standpoint, it's a sloppy and it's a lazy thing to do, and it absolutely can lead to stagnation, but it can also result in me as a writer painting myself into a corner if I think, oh man, these stories always have to include the core three from the first game. It's a terrible idea from a writing standpoint, so that's why I'm designing this entire series in mind to not do that. But if you connect Three Down Stars to Road Past Guilt using the code linker feature that's in the games, then you will be able to unlock a brand new story segment in Road Past Guilt. So that's going to be a couple hours still. That's just Holt, Annalise, and Moss, and obviously other characters. You'll be able to recruit them, and you'll be able to customize your party. So they'll have their own story that takes place a couple weeks after Three Down Stars. Has nothing to do with the main story campaign of RPG, which stands on its own. That's its own thing, and I'm not going to shoehorn things into it to make it sloppy. It's going to be a strong narrative that stands on its own. Holt, Annalise, and Moss will have their own story segment, and you will get to see what Holt, Annalise, and Moss play like if they were RPG characters, which me personally, I think is so fun to take a character out of one genre, stick them into another genre, and see how they handle. And that was the appeal of designing the code linker system and being able to connect all the Silver Falls games. You are going every game that I have planned right now, and even upcoming ones, will get the same sort of treatment in RPG, where if you take that game, plug it into RPG, then you'll have a couple hours of a standalone story that focuses on that character in the RPG style, and then those characters will also become recruitable into the main story. So you can have all those characters as playable party members. And that includes Bull Brandish from Undertakers. That includes the unnamed protagonist from Deadly Shadows. And that will also include the two protagonists from Ghoulbusters. I am going to talk a bit more about Ghoulbusters, as it looks like I'm tossing up between Ghoulbusters and Deadly Shadows as the first title that I bring to the Switch. I am asking Nintendo for permission if I can do development on the Switch, and I'm asking for the dev kit. And I'm trying to decide which game that I'm going to finish, because as soon as I get that dev kit, I want to have a game ready to submit and send that out. So I do apologize for all the 3DS fans. I'm just not getting sales with 3 Down Stars on the 3DS to the point where I can keep developing games on the 3DS, which is a big bummer. That's life. It took me a lot longer to develop 3 Down Stars than I expected. There was a lot more problems with the development software than was first led on, and it only got worse and worse, and that resulted in a much longer development period. Oh well, that's life. We got the game published. We're getting it patched, and I have an incredible, base of supporters that are so awesome, And I really enjoy hearing from you guys, and I really appreciate you telling other gamers about Silver Falls. So I really want to create awesome stories and awesome games for you guys. So yeah, that's sort of the writing behind Silver Falls and sort of the characters that are behind it. So I try to think of something else interesting to talk about in the next coming days. I hope you're all safe. The quarantine situation kind of sucks, and I really, I've sort of self-quarantined for the past almost 3 years now, as I've been working on 3 Down Stars, but that was a personal choice. I needed to save money, and I needed to make sure all of my energy and time was spent on the game. And I finished the game, and then it really sucked being in self-quarantine for 3 years, so I understand how horrible and how awful it feels. And now that everyone else has to quarantine, I know how terrible it feels, and I really feel for everyone. So I don't know. Hopefully I can make more games and get them published faster, so people who are enjoying the story of Silver Falls 4 have more to enjoy. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you watching. If you know anyone else that you think would enjoy the kind of stories in Silver Falls 3 Down Stars, please share. And I really appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you again soon in Silver Falls.